Hello and welcome everybody. This is David Beers, owner of 39 Minute Workout and Wellness here in Ellicott City, Maryland. And today I wanted to talk about how to improve your goblet squat, which if you don't know what that means, just mean holding a single kettlebell or dumbbell by the hands up to your throat and sitting in the squat position. This is as opposed to a lot of other types of squats. We got front squats with a bar or two kettlebells. We've got back squats and low bar back squats. You don't know what that means, it's not important. What we're here to talk to you today about is your goblet squat, which is basically a squat every human being should be able to do well. My goal for my clients with the goblet squat is that they can get their butt down to their knees and back up with weights. A little bit hard to say on a video because it depends on you, age, injury history, all that stuff. But to be able to grab a bell, sit at least till your knees get to 90 degrees, okay? And then standing back up. Now, first things first, and that is get the range of motion to get the movement correct. And then the next thing is get stronger. Strength is absolutely imperative, and any of my clients know I talk about strength being the most important thing, but not before form is correct. So the first things first is spine position, making sure your knees are safe, making sure there's no pain in the movement, getting the depth there, and then once that's been created, then you go in and start making it stronger. I'm not going to go into all the corrective stuff, how I would take a client who can't squat safely or without pain and get them to a good squat. That's a different video. But for today, let's talk about how to, once you do have the depth, so I'm assuming you're somebody with at least a 90-degree depth in your squat, and then we can take it from there. Let's get better at this. So number one is your stance. It's a little bit individual. Anybody who tells you there's a proper squat stance hasn't trained people or hasn't trained people for over a decade like I have. That squat stance, I've got a client right now with pretty bad knees. I'd say really bad knees. She wears knee braces. She started our program. She had a lot of problems. We found her proper squat stance, which was very wide. Miraculously, she's getting to almost 90 degrees. It's huge, and without much pain, without much discomfort, doing incredibly well. The only rules of thumb I'm gonna say is they should never be as narrow as your hips, because if they're as narrow as your hips, it's way too much of a quad squat and you're leaving the booty out. Your booty is a big part of your muscles for the squat. So I would in general start with shoulder width. So if I drew a line from your hip straight down, my feet should be outside of that. That's the general rule. Very rarely do I like much wider than that, because what tends to happen is see that buckling inward, very bad. My right knee doesn't even like that. Or too narrow becomes all quads, no butt. We don't want that because that lacks strength. I do help beginners, sometimes in the beginning, because beginners, what I find forget the most is stance width. I don't know if you can see these blue bands on the floor, but I'll get a beginner stance right. We'll play with it. We'll find their stance, and then I'll put these right in front of their toes where I like that. And then I'll just go, hey, whenever you're gonna come up and swing or squat, I just want you to align your toes. The next part, can your feet be turned in or out? I mean, not in. Nobody ever squats with them turned in. Can your feet be turned out? The answer is yes. It just depends on how much. I would have to one-on-one watch you to say that's the right turnout. Again, all I'm gonna say is, plie, right? If you're a dancer, this is not how we're ever gonna squat. Hopefully you can see my feet are turned out like 45 degrees or more. That would be virtually impossible to do safely. We're gonna shoot for not train track straight, but just a slight turnout so that when I come down, it feels like I can get through there, okay? That's as much as I'm gonna say about stance in this video. The next piece is hand position. The proper goblet squat, the hand position is up by your throat with your elbows down under you. This weight now is really anchored like I'm holding it on my chest, so that when I come down, it's got that perfect goblet squat look where that spine is nice and as close to vertical as possible, okay? What happens is clients, they get a little lazy in class, or they maybe have more than their arms can handle, and the bell starts coming here onto their chest. It does two things. Number one, they start to rock forward. That's not a squat, that's a deadlift. And then it starts to strain the low back, okay? it starts to pull them forward and then straighten their low back. We need the Goblet Squat is teaching phenomenal posture and good form so that the hips and the knees are doing all the work. We need the bell nice and up by your throat. That's gonna really anchor that bell close to your torso as possible. I don't even mind, to be honest, if you shove your elbows out a little bit as you come down, okay? Because we want that weight centered over the chest. Okay, number 3. This is especially true of anybody who has low back problems. Before you move heavy weight, and look, I don't care if you're picking up 18 pounds or 250 pounds or whatever. I want you to lift every single weight as if you're lifting heavy weight. This is a trick of the trade of people who are very strong and don't get injured. If you move little weights like they're little weights, that's probably when you're gonna hurt yourself. So treat the weight as if you have utmost respect for it. Okay, so we are going to, here's really how you're gonna start. And I don't care if you're doing the back squat with a bar on your back or 2 kettlebells or 1 kettlebell, whatever. A squat, the first thing I do, because I have to watch this, I actually have a little bit of rounding in my low back and I tend to spill my pelvis forward and round in the low back. This is not good. I've had to correct this. Like, we all have movement pattern problems. It probably happened in my teenage year, okay? You all have movement pattern problems. I help people in their 40s and 60s. This is the stuff we gotta fix. So how do we stand, okay? Pick that bell up. Before I drop into my first squat, I'm gonna squeeze my butt, and I don't know if you can see that, I'm trying to exaggerate. I'm gonna squeeze my butt, which automatically tucks the tailbone under. When your butt's squeezed, it is impossible for you to also have soft abs. So I'm gonna squeeze my butt, pull my rib cage down a little bit so that this is shortened and this is tight. And I'm gonna keep my lats, my back muscles, these guys, the big guys under your armpits. So I'll say to my clients who don't know where their lats are, squeeze your armpits, okay? So I've picked up that heavy bell, I've squeezed my butt, pulled my rib cage down, squeezed my armpits, and now I'm ready to drop into that position. When I do that and I learn how to lift like that, the chances of injury just went really, really far down. And that's the whole goal. I work with an aging population. My biggest goal is, number 1, don't get them hurt. Number 2, get them really strong. Number 3, make them perform better than anybody else their age. So that's a big lofty goal. To do it, that's what you gotta do. This is true of deadlifts, kettlebell swings, everything. Squeeze the butt, pull the rib cage down, keep your shoulders retracted. So somehow I like to say, squeeze your armpits. The last piece, this is a little bit more technical, but I love it. It's gonna really make you stronger, because if we're just passive and we just drop down into the bottom position, those of you who are nice and flexible and limber, like I've worked a long time to make my hips very limber. Those of you who are really hypermobile, I don't want you to just drop and bounce into the joint. I want you to pull yourself with your hip flexors, which are muscles up in the front of the groin, right? And they do this, right? Right at that last little that. So I want you, instead of just dropping, I want you to literally imagine as if you are, okay, butt tight, core tight, shoulders back. Okay, I'm about to go into my first rep. I want you to pull yourself down into that bottom position. So I'm cramping right in the front of my groin, right in the front of my hip. And now I'm gonna use my big leg muscles to drive my head straight up through the ceiling, okay? So I'm not gonna just drop and bounce on the knees, right? Which can definitely cause some problems if people really bounce. You're going to actively grab the bell. This is putting it all together. Hands up, stance right. Engage my butt, my core, my shoulders. And now I'm going to pull myself down into position, nice and upright, and stand straight back up. And doing my desired number of reps, okay? So that's a great looking kettlebell squat. Front squat, goblet squat. If you want to perfect it, first work with a nice light bell, okay? First work with something that doesn't feel terribly hard, but it's just enough to notice it's there. Get those knees to 90 degrees without any pain. Put the stuff I just said into practice and then make it stronger. Get as strong as you want. Your legs ought to be a lot stronger than your arms. This ought to be able to move a lot more weight than that. It's obvious why. But you got to practice good safety measures. And if you've ever been somebody who said squats aren't good for me, we got to get over that. If you plan to sit on a chair, a toilet, or climb steps, squats are good for you. I train people in their up to their late 70s how to squat correctly. It's important. And that is the what's and the whys of it. So thank you for joining. This is again David Beers with 39-Minute Workout and Wellness here in Ellicott City, Maryland. And yeah, that is it for now. Check us out, 39minuteworkout.com, and I will see you next time.